Greetings, everyone, and welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back once more into the world of darkness and learn about another interesting being? We're going to be learning about another tribe of Werewolf The Apocalypse today. And if you're ready to learn, grab my hand. I am your host and guide here, Tantus Narravan, and I will lead you through the gauntlet, traveling from our world to another world, similar to ours, where supernatural creatures boil beneath the surface, the world of darkness. Do remember to tip me, like, subscribe, ring the bell, over on the YouTube side of things, and if you're not on YouTube, pop over there now. Well, when the video goes up, we are diving into the world of darkness in the gauntlet. We go now. We've arrived into the world of darkness. Yes, in the world of Werewolf The Apocalypse. Uktena, the Ghost Council, are who we're going to be learning about today. They're a little on edge. Some things have happened to them, and certainly, as a person with some European blood within them, I'm not really the necessary one to trust. But still, nonetheless, say the right things. We can learn from them, understand them, learn their history, and where they are in the state of things. Now, if you are to go mechanically, how to play one in the game, and some other details, there are sources for that. Of course, the online things like the White Wikipedia is really good, but for book-wise, we got the player's guides. I'm showing the earlier edition player's guide, but any of the player's guides are good there, along with the core books there. This is the W21. It's my top tier one I really like the best for a lot of these things. There we go. And of course, the tribe books from the time period. The Uktena tribe book and tribe book Uktena, they're just different editions, versions of these books. This is going to give you a great thing. We are going to talk about the Ghost Council, which the Uktena are also anyway known as, but that's the 5th edition counterpart to the Uktena. I didn't put it here because it's mostly the same in a lot of ways, with some differences, and we'll talk about it. Anyway, shall we dive in? Uktena, Ghost Council, a tribe of Werewolf The Apocalypse. It has a base of cultures that comprise it, and is considered a very mistrusted group for reasons that really aren't understood. They do master dark and forbidden knowledge, which leads to that mistrust bit. And there definitely is a core of Native American culture deep within them. It's just that they've expanded their cultural basis going into the new time periods and the modern world. They're also known as Older Brother, and they are a member of the Garou nation, so keep that in mind. And their totem is Uktena, which they're named after. Another note here that Uktena means horned serpent, so keep that in mind, because that's what the spirit in 5th edition is. Hey, they moved it away from the Cherokee name into the more generic name for this totem, but the Cherokee name for horned serpent is Uktena. They're named after that, which is their totem spirit, the Uktena. Anyway, there's that go-around there. Let's talk about their history, and their earliest history. They are one of the original tribes that settled North America, the Pure Ones. There were 3 tribes that did this. Of them, they were known as the Older Brother. They looked after the other 2, Middle Brother and Younger Brother. Their legends say that before the time of the Pure Lands and the settling of it, they traveled. They had found the Pure Lands, but they did not settle. And after then, Gaia called for them to go there, and they returned with their brother tribes, the Croatoan and the Wendigo, and had them help defend this land. So, that's the 3 of them arriving in the Pure Lands, becoming the Pure Ones, connecting to the various tribes of North America, particularly some in Central South America to a degree, and, making the cultures that they would be until reconnecting with European Garou from across the world. Alright. Cool. Got the basics out of them. So, we know also that their original totem was Skyhawk. But at some point in time, during the settlement of the Pure Lands, Skyhawk went away, and Uktena, Older Brother, won the allegiance of them. And they renamed themselves after them. They traveled farther south, eventually settling territories in North America, Central America, and attempting ingress into the northern parts of South America. But they had conflict that occurred between native Fera, that had already been here, and themselves and other werewolves. And then, of course, the lack of wolves in South America basically hindered the Uktena from getting any farther south than northern South America. They had a powerful set of mystic knowledge, and this mythic knowledge was useful in binding the creatures of the Beast of War, the creatures of the worm that roamed the lands, and putting them to sleep between chaos. Basically, if there was a threat they could not eliminate, they sealed it away. They can't destroy it, seal it away. We know the mystical ways of doing that. We will hide them beneath our cairns. We will be safe. We'll have to watch it. During this time, they also took mortal nations under rule, teaching about Gaia, about spirits. Were people that turned this against their teachers, using their power to rule their nations, even turning against Garou benefactors. Some fell prey to temptations of the worm. And the Uktena tried to warn their brothers, the other two tribes, that the worm continued to manifest not only as monsters. Wendigo refused to listen, and the Croatoans overreacted. Basically, they saw a betrayal from the mortals, and they met it with brutal violence. They destroyed the entire Adean culture as a retaliation when a few of them fell to the worm's deception. So, a few of them fell, killed them all. So, the Uktena basically were like, yeah, one didn't care, the other went overboard, maybe we'll just police the Pure Lands ourselves from worm taint. We'll take care of this. If people get tainted, we'll take care of it. And if something gets out of hand, we'll call on our brother. So you two, just sit back, when we need you, we'll call upon you. Don't call us, we'll call you. The Dark Ages arose, and this is the time of the Aztec Empire. Ooh, a big section that, leads into the colonization and the Europeans coming in, Aztecs. The thing is, the Aztecs worshipped a coven of worm entities headed by, I'm going to butcher this name, Huitzilopochtli. Yeah, Chitli. That's really bad. Who theoretically is a vampire. This entire story is about that. But anyway, this part where it is, they demanded blood sacrifices of the population, but this coven of worm spirits that had this possible, powerful, human vampire creature and of course, not good. It drove the Uktena away from those regions and disconnected them from the Aztecs, of course, worshipping, worm creatures. They continued to fight the worm creatures that were spawned from these hellhole and numerous monstrosities were birthed from here, like the Hardeners. Alright. The beings they call the Worm Bringers arrive. Basically, Europeans and their werewolf and Garou that came with them. The Uktena foresaw misunderstandings, racism, cause battles. European Garou and pure tribes. Basically, the European Garou didn't bind things. They killed them. They sacrificed everything to kill them. So they believed that these holy sites that the Uktena had tainted, and that the tribe corrupted by the worm. Remember, the Uktena were smart. They had rituals, and if they couldn't kill it, if it was like something that would be incredibly difficult, lose too many members, something they really couldn't kill, they sealed it away. The European Garou were like, that's worm taint. So, these European Garou turned against the Uktena, turned against native Fera. They saw them complicit, turned against all the other pure tribes. The genocide of course, the Ashes, the Kamazans, basically persuaded the Shadow Lords to end their part of this entire bloodshed, but a lot of damage was already done. Suffering, spiritual chaos, the massacre of loyal changing breeds out of blind paranoia and prejudice, strengthened an aspect of the worm, the Eater of Souls. And it nearly manifested in the physical world. A worm spirit nearly manifested in the physical world. The Croatan took it to drive themselves back. And they took some Uktena lore and devised a ritual to banish it. They sacrificed their entire tribe to do so. The Eater of Souls, an incredibly powerful worm creature that, would it manifest on the material world, may cause the apocalypse kind of thing. An aspect of the worm itself, the worm of construction, yeah. It was banished. It could not be defeated. The Croatan did so. No newcomers were born from their kinfolk. The totem was thrown into Sumbul. Their fetishes became inert. Their ancestor spirits vanished. We'll have to talk about it. But this was a huge loss. Middle brother was gone. And the Uktena and the unity between the other tribe, Wendigo, was strained. The Wendigo accused the Uktena of having left the Croatan to their demise, and dishonoring their memory by taking their kings. On the other hand, the Uktena felt responsible for this. It was their knowledge that allowed the ritual to be created, and the Croatan's decision. So they sought to preserve the Karens from Wormbringers, hands, and they fell into reclusiveness, searching for the secrets of their lost brother to preserve them. The Uktena became increasingly obsessed with secrets, and turned their attention from human nations and kinfolk for a time. When the Storm Eater manifested, that's when they joined with the other tribes and even convinced the Wendigo to participate in the right to bind the Entity. And this was kind of the end of the war between the pure tribes and European Garou, and brought some peace to the Garou nation. The Storm Eater. By this time, though, the nations that Uktena had called kin in ruins. Their tribes scattered, removed into reservations. Their children losing their heritage. Without this choice, they made a big without other choices. They made a big choice. They chose to basically connect up with and have children with those outside of Native American demographic. This is after the Great Council of 1819. They sought, though, to those that they would have children with and bring their blood into people that were from oppressed people. It was, at first, things like African Americans, slaves, and free black men of the time period. The people of Polynesian descent. There are people that were from faraway places like New Zealand, Hokkaido. They would spread out and connect up with more of these disparate, basically mistreated cultures and bring them into their fray. They became a bastion. It was only European cultures that weren't welcome. Now the Wendigo saw this as a betrayal of their heritage, shunned these new Uktena. They're like, hey, you guys aren't true Uktena. You're terrible. Why are you here? You're getting rid of the purity of us. Wendigo has some own problems we'll talk about. We reach more modern days. The Uktena themselves are vindicated in a lot of ways. Interest and pride in the cultures of their kinfolk that were so severely prosecuted has arisen among the people. They also began to involve themselves more closely with kinfolk's problems, basically working to ensure that they are aware of threats of the Weaver and Worm these days. They don't call them that, but when something's going on in the, mortal world, they can be like, hey, there's stuff going on right here. Keep an eye on it, maybe say something about it. In fighting back using these connections, they've established things like national parks for their wolfkin, fights for civil rights and land rights for human relations, and they are also plenty of voices within the tribe calling for cooperation with the European tribes. They also realize at this point in time a Garou nation divided cannot triumph against them. It seems to continually grow more powerful. The Red Star blazes in the sky, and they actually had a council meeting in 2002 to discuss the omens and prepare for the apocalypse. We're getting ready for it. Let's talk about how they are organized, because it's a very loose organization. They have moots, big meetings that are held between the different septs in order to avoid becoming isolated. So they big get-togethers that are like, we have to catch up. And they do have tribal councils that are held to discuss matters of the tribe as a whole. For the councils, only if you are an elder rank can you speak. Although, any Uktena can attend a council meeting. So the moots, those are the big get-togethers, the big parties, But if you're getting to a big tribal council, then a bunch of heads are meeting, elders are meeting, then you at least have to have the elders. Every season, a great council is held to gather the elders of the tribe to discuss the state of things in the world and how it could affect them. Now, there are some camps that tend to be like-minded. Like-minded members of the tribe bring themselves together in search for certain secrets. Each camp has a focus and seeks a specific kind of knowledge. Some wish to explore only secrets of the material world, others spirit lands, others even places that should, in most cases, remain hidden. First is the Bane Tenders, one of the oldest of their camps. This camp is dedicated to keep the Banes that the first Uktena bound in cairns asleep. I talked about it. That was one of their big histories in the early time, where they were binding away powerful spiritual creatures that could not be killed very easily. Basically, we can't defeat this thing. We'll bind it. We'll seal it away. Still a bunch of those. So, yeah. The Earth Guides see themselves as preservers and rediscoverers of tradition. They will seek out and preserve any threatened human culture, but there are some that focus more on things like the Garou side, memorizing traditions of lupus-born Garou, or even those of Pharaoh. So, yes, we do have the Earth Guides that do kind of split up. There are those that, go to any culture in the world, but there are definitely those that focus on Garou cultures that are falling away, lupus-born ones. Hey, the lupus are kind of disappearing a lot in the loss of wolves, and Pharaoh are doing very good too. Path dancers. They seek to master other forms of magic, like sorcery, and use it against the world. There are other types of powers out there. Sorcery appears in many of the other White Wolf sources. Known to mages as linear magic, hedge wizardry, known to the technocratic users, hedge sciences. This is a form of magic used by mortal non-mages in the world of darkness. You don't have to be awakened or enlightened to use sorcery. If you have enough traits, you can learn the things. And of course, yes, there are those, that connect with things with vampire, Tremere, blood magic, and the Garou. Kinfolk sometimes can learn this, and parts of other tribes and stuff have learned this. And in this case, this group here learns this kind of magic because they can use it against the worm. The Scouts. They originally were the messengers between the three brothers, between little brother, and older brother. Today, they basically keep the disparate elements of their own tribe in touch with each other. So they are a group that makes sure to spread the word, connect with things. They're the ones that are probably organizing a lot of the big get-togethers, the big councils. The Raiders focus on retrieving lost secrets from the hands of worm spawn, like black spiral dancers, vampires, or more sinister forces. Basically, when a secret has been lost to the worm, and they can retrieve it, that's what the Raiders do. Skywalkers travel the Umbra. They seek powerful spirits that they can use to bind into fetishes to fight the worm. Pretty simple like that. They're basically using the powers of the Umbra to continue to fight the worm. The Webwalkers are closely allies to the Glasswalkers. They seek the secrets of the Weaver because they see the use of modern technology as something they can use against the worm. The Weaver is still not necessarily the best thing, but the Weaver is less destructive and much more of less of a threat than the worm currently is. The Weaver is not bringing about the apocalypse, so if they can use what the Weaver has for now to fight against the worm, all better. The Wild Children are basically solitary. They seek communion with Gaia, isolate themselves in the last place of a strong wild residence, kind of connect up with Gaia directly. There is one more camp, that's within the tribe, but it is seen as worm taking. Whether it is or not, kind of a hard line. It feels like it could be. But the Society of Bitter Frost. There's rumors that they have a pact with black spiral dancers. Basically what they are, they're a group that wants to reclaim the lands that were stolen by Europeans for the tribes and Native Americans by any means. And to this end, they upon dark gifts granted by servants of the worm. Yeah, it's a fine line that they very well may have crossed and entered into corruption. So. Let's talk about their culture. They have a reputation for taking in refugees. The downtrodden, those that have lost their homes, had their lands conquered, or taken from them. Basically, there still is plenty of Uktena which are purebred to Native American heritage. But there are a lot nowadays that are coming more and more of mixed heritages and cultures. Basically, with their older numbers decimated, bringing in these older people has helped keep particularly again, cultures that have had their old ways decimated and are in danger of being lost forever, they're willing to bring them in. You know, getting their blood, making kinfolk, you know, all these things. Now, they are gifted in many spiritual practices, prophecy and visions. When it comes to reputation, Hunters of the Worm and Banes are the top tier. And there's little argument that they are second to none when it comes to their abilities. It does seem to have a price. They have access to dark practices. And because of broad cultures that are connected to them, that have brought in some other dark practices and knowledge, you know, this is beneficial to them, but again, sometimes we run into secrets which really should not be revealed. So many will seek a Uktena as a Hunter of the Worm, but plenty will distrust their dark abilities and fear that, you know, if it even hasn't been corrupted, it might still. Now, there are 5 cairns that we know about that are under at least partial Uktena control, if not complete. Most of them are in North America, except for one. There's the Sept of the Seven Clans in Big Cove Hollow in North Carolina. The only non-American one that we know about is the Spirit Stone Cairn in Russia. There's the Sept of the White Water, which is on Goat Island in Niagara Falls. That is shared with the Fianna. There's the Roadrunner Sept in Arizona. And of course, the Sept of the Glass Hand in Grayson City, Carolina. Okay. So since the European invasion and the Sacrifice Declaration, basically there's still been a lot of bitterness towards European tribes together. They're still closely allied with the Wendigo, though again, younger brother has its doubts. It certainly looks down on these dark practices of Uktena a lot more nowadays. Hey, your knowledge got our middle brother killed. You still doing that? Now they do still follow the Litany. In addition, but they have an additional tenet of the Litany, the laws of the Garou nation. Seek knowledge wherever you may. This tends to be directed towards the worm or locations of hidden worm beasts so that they can stand to watch over them. To this end, they're willing to cooperate with other supernaturals. Occasionally, they make contact with other Pharaoh, dream speakers, mage, Nunehe, changeling, and sometimes the rare Tremere that it might be thinking it could outwit the lupine and gain advantage of it, and of course the Uktena is really taking advantage of them. There have even been times Uktena have pretended to listen to a worm spawn, like a black spiral dancer. Oh yeah, that's an interesting thing you're trying to sell me to. Maybe I will fall. You know, just don't mind that my clave is now stabbing me in the side. Thank you for the information. Steal the secrets before killing them. So, Uktena are required to engage in occult and spiritual practices. A lot of their abilities against the worm kind of derive from these. And many of their talents in prophecy or in the discovery of lost lores are dealt with these kind of spiritual practices. They do revere the triad as the 3 grandfathers. Grandfather Smoke for the wild, Spider, Grandfather Spider for the weaver, Grandfather Serpent for the worm. They talk about the disharmony between them and the story of how that happened vary from cairn to cairn, but it often does reflect the tribal kin that are in the area, the human kin. Unlike many other tribes, the Uktena do actually recognize that the worm itself isn't evil. It's a corruptive force, it's gone mad, it's kind of doing its thing out of control from the balance that was there. Balance and disharmony has been made, but the worm itself, not evil. Great Uktena, the spirit that they serve, was once a servant to the worm of balance. And the Uktena seek a way to defeat the serpent through cunning, not merely just brute force. Cunning is always good. So, a little bit of trivia to know. They are one of 3 tribes named after their totem. Hey, again, 5th edition has changed this to Ghost Council, which is something we kind of call. Anyway, we'll talk about that. The Uktena name comes from the Cherokee name for horned serpent. Their concept of tribe comes from the Aniwaya, which means wolf people or wolf clan, which were the largest of the 7 Cherokee clans. They were also inspired by the teacher wolves, dog people, shape-shifting wolves of Native American folklore for their original design. They grew out of this Cherokee basis over the years. Basically, when we talk about 1st edition, they're very Cherokee coded. And it came to include a lot of other indigenous people Amazonian indigenous tribes, Aboriginal Australians, African tribes, South American groups, indigenous people of Siberia, and many more. Basically, when they began adopting these people after 1819, they adopted a lot of people into them over the years. So yeah. So certainly speaking, they are connected with a lot of Native American tribes that are seen as kinfolk to them. But they've expanded beyond that in the lore in a lot of ways, and advanced themselves. Let's talk the big elephant in the room for a second. 5th edition. W5, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I like a few things from it, dislike a lot from it. I'm just going to preface this for what I talk about here, but I'm going to keep my discussions to just what you need to know about it if you're interested. Big thing here is we're in the middle of the actual apocalypse. Apocalypse happens, they couldn't fight it, couldn't stop it, things gone to shit, Garou Nation's broken apart, all the tribes are kind of different, things are no longer connected with blood directly, which is kind of weird because just not being descended from particular cultures. Hey, blood gets around. You could still say that originally they were from these cultures, and hey, after a billion generations, you might have that 1% of, so there are plenty of people out there in here in North America that have like 1% Native American. Boom, you're a Garou. Why? Because that 1%. Anyway, that's my little rant on that one. They still seek mysteries. They're still kind of secretive. They're still misunderstood. They still kind of go by a whatever to fight it, but they're kind of also like a find this knowledge because it's the apocalypse. It doesn't matter if it's dark knowledge. It's kind of a little weird there. Their patron is the Horned Serpent. Uktena, still, yeah. They were renowned for wisdom. They are one of the current 11 tribes. So yeah. They kind of take some aspects of some of the other older tribes together. They kind of combine it together, but they are in many ways, a spiritual, I'll say, successor to Uktena, the Ghost Council. They certainly are supposed to be the replacement for them, though again, it's not quite the same in a lot of ways. A need for knowledge, practical spiritual nature, basically practicality, the forefront of that. Finding secrets, no matter what kind of secrets they are. Being a little bit of subversive to more traditional Garou. Ends justify the mean, which could be dangerous politically. So, looking for hidden troops in human society or beyond. Yeah. Very little mention of what's going on with the worm in their backstory, or their battles against it, or banes, or spirits, or stuff like that. It's, yeah. I don't know. I think it's up to you on this one, how you feel about it. But I think it is like a kind of I feel it's a boiled down version with a couple of little snippets of other places kind of thrown into to create what the Ghost Council is. It's not bad. It's kind of Uktena, but it's 5th edition. And, up to you on how you like it or not. I'm certainly see that people could enjoy some of the directions they take with it. There are some things I enjoy with it, so I'm not going to poo-poo the Ghost Council here, if you like a lot of the direction and the way they portrayed them here. But yeah, I'll just keep that as a simple there. But that'll be it for today. I hope you enjoyed learning about Uktena, the Ghost Council, in both forms. Again, I'll just preference that I'm not a big fan of a lot of the way that they did a lot of lore stuff in 5th edition. It's one of these things that the people that did the 5th edition stuff, I've been a mixed bag about that, and I've had my complaints. Certainly speaking, I haven't liked the mechanics in Vampire. I was okay with the mechanics in Hunter. I kind of feel this middle ground on the mechanics for Werewolf. I feel there's some good and bad in that too. But from lore side, I think they went overboard on some things with Vampire, but I like most of their decisions. Hunter, I don't mind the direction they took. Getting rid of the supernatural powers. Werewolf, I don't like a lot of their directions. Especially the lore side. There's a few things that are interesting, but it feels like the one that's the farthest away from old White Wolf. Hunter still feels like Hunter. Vampire still feels like Vampire. Werewolf, it feels like we're doing The Reckoning all over again. the Chronicles of Darkness version. Which, the Chronicles of Darkness had its fans, the people that loved it. But it became its own thing. Because it really was. This feels the same. Anyway, getting back away from that to actual Uktena, now that I'm done that little, temporary rant. I'm going to do this every time we have a werewolf video, aren't I? They're awesome. I like them. I like that they've basically found a way to evolve into the modern way by embracing some other cultures, adding other people into. They were smart. They understood that they were on a precipice. This is the reason that Wendigo suffers a lot more than them. Wendigo tried to remain what they consider pure, basically not bringing any other blood in, if they could help it. On the other hand, there are plenty of people of mixed heritages, of mixed blood, much more. And if you are wanting to take the big thing from the Apocalypse storyline where blood matters less, where a drop of blood, that 1%, could mean you become a werewolf nowadays, it's not as important as much to have, werewolf children, that it basically pops up a lot more randomly. That it wasn't as direct, on descended from werewolves as it was before. Sure, maybe you could have some werewolf children. Sure, there's kind of kinfolk. But that's less important. See? But, see, that's where the ideas are. They could expand their kin, their connections, find more people that they could connect up with, more cultures that they could help to preserve, and they could guide in a lot of ways. And that has allowed them to spread over a lot more areas of the world. The Uktena are not just where they were before. They have spread farther because they had to, and because they could see the writing on the wall if they didn't. And their secrets, and what they've done has to have someone looking after it. Okay. Alright, that's it for today. I will leave that there. Hope you enjoyed all this. Remember, check out all my other stuff, whether it's me live on Twitch or me over on YouTube. Both are great options. If you're joining me over on the Twitch side, do remember to check out my schedule, my social media. I also put my schedule for uploads, which is usually pretty good, except if issues happen with recording and video editing and stuff over on the YouTube side. All that stuff and more updates to these things, what's going on in my life, sometimes some cat pictures, over on the social medias, especially my Discord, followed closely by Blue Sky, then X/Twitter, and of course I do throw some things over on my YouTube community page. Do remember, continue to appease the dark algorithm with YouTube by liking, subscribing, ringing the bell. Whether you're joining me live or not, hey, when this video goes up, just go over there and put those little things in. Do a couple of clicks over on YouTube. Or if you're over there on YouTube, you do that. What do you think of the Uktena? I would like to know what you think of them as they are, what you think of the Ghost Council. Are you inspired by them? Have you played any characters from either? I want to know stories from, a 5th edition story, an old edition story. Give me all this kind of information that allows us to build a kind of picture about stuff. Because experiencing things is a lot better than running them. And I have not experienced playing as any of these. I haven't played the Uktena. I played a little bit of Werewolf. Ran a little bit of Werewolf. Yeah. Alright, everybody. I'm going to get going. Hang out with Twitch chat. Maybe do some more recordings. But until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.